Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, and then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Tomb Raider, number 2 would be Love, Simon, number 3 would be Black Panther, number 4 would be A Wrinkle in Time, and number 5 would be The Strangers, Pray at Night, and I only got 1 out of 5 of my predictions right, and surprisingly it wasn't the most predictable one. It was actually the complete opposite of what I expected. So let's go over what actually happened at the top 10 this weekend, and number 1 was once again Black Panther, making $27 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $605 million. And on the worldwide chart, it is sitting at $1.182 billion. Now, domestically, it is only about $20 million away from topping the first Avengers total domestic total, which, in case you didn't know, is the highest gross out of any MCU film. So Black Panther is literally going to top it in the next few weeks, and that is very surprising to me because I knew Black Panther was going to make a lot of money considering it opened with like $201 million, which was like a few million behind the first Avengers, but the fact that now it's going to be topping that one is so surprising to me. And honestly, I'm happy for it. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but the fact that this movie is the one that's going to be topping the Avengers soon for like highest domestic gross, that is very surprising to me, and that's very cool for this film. Moving on to number 2, however, which is not having that great of a success, is Tomb Raider, making $23 million on its opening weekend, and in comparison to the Angelina Jolie films, this is only $2 million higher than the Cradle of Life's opening, and it didn't even come close to the original film's like $45-something million opening. That's kind of embarrassing that the film that you're saying like is the one you're proud of based off the great game is not even better than the Angelina Jolie film, like marketing and money-wise. This is on a budget of $94 million, and domestically it looks like a big flop, but on the worldwide chart it's actually kind of killing it, making $126 million this weekend. So according to the budget, it needs about $188 million to be considered a success, and considering where it is already worldwide, I think it's going to get there very soon. Whether the studio sees this as enough money to make a sequel or franchise out of this, we're just going to have to kind of wait and see on that one. It kind of just depends. Moving on to number 3, which is I Can Only Imagine, which is a new faith-based film that is coming out of nowhere. The one I usually come into like every year. There's at least one faith-based film that catches me completely off guard. It made $17 million this weekend on a budget of $7 million, so it's a success. Yay! Moving on to number 4, which is A Wrinkle in Time, making $16 million, adding to a domestic total of $61 million, and on the worldwide chart it is only at $71 million. So it is having kind of a hard time getting past that $100 million budget. Like, at first I thought, well, the second weekend it'll probably pick up worldwide-wise, right? Apparently not so. Maybe it's going to take a while to release in other countries, and that's why the worldwide is taking a while, but this is not a very good start for this film, especially an expensive film like this. But then again, Disney does have the occasional big budget kind of flop, like John Carter and Tomorrowland and Lone Ranger. So this is not anything unusual. It's just kind of surprising that this film, which has kind of gotten some attention because of the diversity involved with it, isn't really making as much as expected. That could be, of course, because of the critical reaction, though, but it seems like it's kind of mixed as far as the fans of the book and the actual critics of the movie, so I'm not really sure. Moving on to number 5, we have Love, Simon. I thought this movie would do a little bit better, but this movie is relatively low budgeted, only on a budget of $17 million, and making about $11 million this weekend. Not a bad start. There's no worldwide total yet. Maybe there will be in the next coming weeks that'll bump that up beyond the doubling point of its budget, but this isn't a bad opening for this film because the budget is relatively low, so I'm thinking this will be fine. It might be just one of those underappreciated gems at the box office that when you see the movie it's great, but box office-wise it didn't do as great as you'd expect, I guess. I thought this movie would do very well considering it is a high school coming-of-age film, but I guess not. Moving on to number 6, which is Game Night. Still, even though it is going down the numbers on the top 10, it is still holding out very strong, making $5.5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $54 million, and on the worldwide chart it is sitting at $84 million. So that is beyond the doubling point of $74 million. It's made $10 million more than that doubling point, and that's very good. I'm very happy that this film is technically a success now because this movie was a lot of fun, and more people clearly are seeing that and spreading the word that it's fun, and that's why it's gotten more people into the theater. I don't see it making 100 million worldwide before it leaves the top 10, but I'm glad that just more people in general saw it, because this film took me by complete surprise. Moving on to number 7, which is Peter Rabbit, making $5.2 million, adding to a domestic total of $102 million, finally domestically doubling its $50 million budget, but on the worldwide chart it is sitting at $145 million. So this film is still doing very well. It's made $45 million over its doubling point, and though it's not a huge success, you could look at these numbers and be like, hey, there's some interest here for maybe another Peter Rabbit. I'm not sure what Sony's plans are, if this was intentionally going to set up a franchise or not. Once again, haven't seen the movie, so I don't know if that's what they were going for, so just kind of have to wait and see if they want to make another one of these. Moving on to number 8, which is The Strangers Prey at Night, which they can make a sequel to at any time, because it made $4.8 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $18 million. It is $2 million away from quadrupling its $5 million budget. If they'd make another Strangers film and keep it like at a $5 million budget, they could very easily make that money back, be a very quick profit for them. Haven't seen the movie yet, but just seeing how it's not as big of a success as the original Strangers, I guess could be disappointing, but at the same time, it's still making money. So, moving on to number 9, which is Red Sparrow, making $4.4 million, adding to a domestic total of $39 million, and on the worldwide chart, it is sitting at $106 million. It's not close to the 138 doubling point as of yet, and it's about to leave the top 10, but at least it made it beyond the 100 million threshold, I guess you could say. And finally, closing out the video, we have Death Wish at number 10, making $3 million, adding to a domestic total of $29 million. It was $1 million away from getting past its $30 million production budget. Unfortunately, it was about $31 million away from actually doubling that budget. So, a big flop for Eli Roth, but now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5, which may be a little tricky considering I'm not so sure which smaller films will be well recognized, I guess. But number 1, I think, will be Pacific Rim Uprising. Number 2, Sherlock Gnomes. Number 3, Black Panther. Number 4, Tomb Raider, and I think number 5 will be Midnight Sun, mainly because Bella Thorne's in it, and it's kind of pandering to that teen romance kind of crowd. I think it'll be able to squeeze in. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave it in the comments below, and if you got your predictions right for this week, you're going to get a shout out right now. Unless you didn't get it right, then I'm sorry. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.